Hello, good afternoon. Today, my classmate Elise and I will be discussing the article Third Wave Feminism and the Defense of Choice by Claire Snyder Hall. Before we begin, we have highlighted the main themes and concepts found throughout the article. This will be analyzed and expanded upon later in the presentation, and they include the following: choice feminism, self-determination as a core value of feminism, radical feminism, second wave feminism, second wave feminism's demise, debates over sexuality, and third wave feminism. Firstly, in order to introduce the article, Snyder Hall touches upon the long-standing conflict between the quest for gender equality and the desire for sexual pleasure in feminism, especially the big debate on feminists that make choices that prop up systems of oppression. In fact, this debate can be seen in the split during the second wave that divided the feminist movement over issues related to sexuality such as pornography, sex work, and heterosexuality. One side of the movement viewed these issues as gender oppression, and the other as an opportunity for sexual pleasure and empowerment. Yet, in the mid-1990s, a third wave of feminism sought to unite these ideas of gender equality and sexual freedom. In this wave, women got to decide for themselves how to negotiate the contradictory desires for gender equality and sexual liberation. Despite some assumptions that this is thoughtless, third wave feminism actually exhibits a deep respect for pluralism and self-determination. In order to contextualize the conflict between gender equality and sexual freedom, we must examine the concepts such as choice feminism and demands of femininity. Choice feminism, which later evolved into what we know as third wave feminism, is the idea that feminism should simply give women choices and not pass judgment on what they choose. In fact, many third wave feminists such as Naomi Wolf, Daisy Hernandez, and Bushra Remnant have praised this new approach and passed criticism on the shortcomings of the second wave. Some of these shortcomings have included how second wavers often feel critiqued women's choices about appearance and sexuality, such as wearing heels or makeup, as well as the lifestyle choices made by stay-at-home mothers. In this article, Snyder Hall focuses on the discussion of how choice feminism responds to debates over sexuality, such as women who engage in sex work, turn themselves into sexual objects, or eroticize male dominance. In some respects, feminism can be viewed as a conscious struggle with the demands of femininity. The demands of femininity, as explained by Laurie Marceau, are defined as women's socially constructed desires, which include both sexual desires and internalized beliefs about gender identity and roles. Marceau argues that even women who embrace feminism often struggle to achieve equality due to their own feminine attraction to the things that contribute to women's oppression or by the gender roles imposed on them. For third wavers, it is less about the choices that women make in this struggle, but rather acting with a feminist consciousness, which can be defined as a knowledge of what one is doing and the reasoning behind why they're doing it. Though Marceau focuses on those women who resist the demands of femininity, Snyder Hall, our author, looks at the women who embrace and enjoy femininity while also fighting for gender equality. The author recognizes that although the contents of choice feminisms are compelling, it is the phrasing that has proven to be problematic. Snyder Hall outlines 3 reasons for this argument. The first one states that the word choice trivializes what are often hard decisions, arguing that women who make quote-unquote problematic choices are not necessarily taking the easy route, but instead they're struggling to balance the imperatives in order to make their decision. The second reason is that referring to them as choices conflates decisions made because of religious and economic obligations as well as preconditions for sexual arousal with seemingly elective options such as wearing makeup and heels. At the same time, what to outsiders might seem as an insignificant elective decision might be actually driven by a woman's need to express her gender identity or a deep-seated sexual desire. Lastly, The rhetoric of choice focuses attention on the individual choice maker and shifts the focus off the ways in which women's choices are often overdetermined by societal structures and cultural traditions. Thus, feminism requires expanding the options available to women so they can be truly self-determining, and the rhetoric of choice obscures that point. In this article, Snyder-Hall advocates for the version of feminism that views freedom not as simply as the capacity to make individual choices, but rather as the ability to determine your own life path. Now, we will look into second-wave feminism and its shortcomings. Women's right to self-determination forms a core value for feminism. As discussed in The Feminine Mystique by Betty Friedan, human beings have an essential desire to exercise self-determination. It is, as Friedan states, the courage to be an individual. However, due to the cultural norms of femininity at the time, women were denied self-determination and were reduced to being their husbands' helpers. Friedan, unlike other second wavers, believed gender equality stood as a precondition of sexual pleasure. That is to say, that gender equality would not erode women's femininity, happiness, or sexual fulfillment. She believed that the choice between femaleness and humanness was a false dichotomy. Tensions between the two ideals intensified with radical feminism, leading to what we would know as the demise of the second wave.
Radical feminism took hold in the second wave. It aimed to provide women with equal opportunities and transform the sex-gender system that advantages men at the expense of women. Radical feminists were inspired by Marxist form of analysis. They viewed society as a structure of a sex and class system, and assumed that their position in the patriarchal order was one common experience that all women share, and will become the basis of solidarity. With radical feminism becoming stronger in the second wave, the site of political struggle moved to the domestic sphere, and heterosexual desire became criticized as the force that keeps women tied to men. In fact, radical feminists attempt to eradicate heterosexuality entirely. The movement to stop having sexual relations with men entirely and become political lesbians, if not sexual ones, was strongly encouraged. In the 1970s, the movement took a turn and the dichotomy of gay and straight took hold. Many straight feminists felt attacked due to the comments like, "Men are the enemy, heterosexual women are collaborators with the enemy." Many heterosexual women consequently left the movement. The dichotomy of gay and straight seriously undermined the solidarity among women and as a result weakened the support for feminism. To further push the second wave into its demise, conflicts within the sexual realms and the lesbian context strengthened. For example, power and inequality relations in the context of lesbian sadomasochism was a very important factor in the split of the second wave feminists, as some feminists did not believe that the violence and power play was appropriate for the movement. More conflicts split the second wave into so-called pro-sex and anti-sex sectors. Debates over sex work and pornography were the main topics of these groups, and because of this, the second wave was depicted as an act of the sex wars. The emergence of the third wave began in the 1990s, with feminists seeking to revitalize the feminist movement and avoid the mistakes that were made in the second wave regarding splits over sexual issues. Rebecca Walker was a third wave pioneer who believes that the second wave feminism was too rigid, judgmental, and divisive. The third wave of feminism had a pro-sex agenda and strived to be inclusive to all women in their choices to navigate the balance of equality and desire. The third wave defended pornography, sex work, and sadomasochism and was pluralistic, intersectional, and overall inclusive as possible. The third wave began with the assumptions that women do not share a common gender identity and a set of experiences, like the second wave did. For example, feminists of color pointed out that during the second wave, white women fought for the right to work outside the home, while black women had almost always worked outside the home because they had to. Another major difference between the second and third wave is that the third wave sought to eliminate judgment throughout the movement. Third wave feminists believe that each woman must make a conscious decision about how to make their own path through life. In conclusion, Snyder-Hall believes that feminism cannot tell a woman how to resolve her internal conflicts, or how to enact her feminism. The second wave had made a solid ground for feminism, but took a hard fall when conflicts became too hard to turn back from. The third wave feminists learn from their former sisters of the second wave and speak in first person about their own struggles to lead by example. As Snyder Hall says, by offering an alternative relationship, genders and sexualities, feminism can expand the possibilities for women to imagine themselves outside the boxes of patriarchy. Third wave feminism focuses on equality and freedom for women in an intersectional approach and views feminists' conversations as never-ending.